How are you, Tammy?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
No problem. I just want to say thank you very much for coming on. You are the first woman that I've had on the podcast.
Really? Well, it's your
Yeah.
lucky day. Have
um,
quite the
how's
story
it?
to
How?
tell.
Yeah, I've read quite a bit about sort of your story and how you've got to where you are today. Um, how I start these podcasts is, the guests introduce themselves, and basically we just go from the start until the finish and have a chat along the way. It's just a
Yeah.
normal chat between two people. It's not interview based, or it's just a
Okay.
really, really nice, easy chat. So, I mean,
Great.
if you wanna take it away from the start, from the
Yeah.
beginning,
So
where you're from, and we'll go from there.
my name is Tammy Burnell, and I'm from Los Angeles, and I am a mom of five, and was always a normal drinker until I got into a toxic relationship, which I'm not going to go into detail about that because that's not relevant. But during that time, I abused alcohol a lot, became addicted, and turned into an alcoholic at the time, and had many, many battles with from detox to rehab to relapse, and all of that. So when I got out of rehab, I saw that there was a huge gap, and that gap being I didn't like um, having to enter the room and say that I'm an alcoholic. That was why I was here in rehab, to get better and not identify myself with something that was a very grueling experience and something that I was ashamed of. And so I didn't agree with that. I also didn't agree with the one day at a time. That seemed horrible to me. Why would you want to live your day one day at a time, hoping that you get through the day without a drink? That seemed horrible. And then the whole disease thing, which is a huge controversy, right? You have a disease for the rest of your life. And I'm like, I don't have a disease. Alcohol is out of your body in 4 days. So
Yeah.
that's weird. All of a sudden, after 4 days, you're miraculously cured. So the biggest thing that got me, and because I've been a business and a life coach for the last 20 years, is that they said you're powerless over alcohol. And I was like, nope, I'm not. So my first week in rehab was not a pleasant experience. I was excused from the meeting multiple times until I got with the program. So after, many talks with the psychiatrists and the counselors and all of that, they kind of got an idea that I had a different approach, but I kind of had to keep a lid on it, and just really worked on me. And after that, it was a great experience. I loved it. Rehab is a vacation. If you're in a toxic environment, that is the best thing for you. So that's kind of the short story. So you can kind of take it from that. I've got stories that tie into all of that. So ask away. I'm an open book.
So, initially, from what you've just said there, sounds almost identical to my mindset and my process. I was addicted to narcotics for 20 years, cocaine being the main one, really. Um, and I came across these AA and NA and
Uh huh.
CA and things like that. And I guess the way that I've done it is relapse after relapse, learn, relapse, learn, relapse, learn. That's how I did it.
Yeah.
Um, I didn't agree with like what you've said there. I don't agree with this. You're powerless to your disease because the journey that I've been on, I feel powerful. There's no powerless
Yeah.
about it. It was,
Yeah.
I've The way that I've done it, I'd say, is education and trial and error. That's how I've done it. I've educated myself.
Yeah. And that's
Studying.
the unfortunate thing, rightly, is that people are left to their own demise.
Yeah.
Like when I got out of rehab, I was like, okay, what's next?
Mm,
And so back to what you were saying, when the NA and the AA, they don't give you any basis. I don't like to use the word recovery. That's another thing. Oh, you're always going to be in recovery. Like, the whole thing is so depressing. For
yeah.
me, it's like you're not in recovery, you're in rebuild mode,
Yeah, agreed.
you know?
I,
And
I,
all of us
I,
that, go ahead, I'm sorry.
no, it's okay. I did. I don't really do the lives on social media. It's not really my cup of tea. But I did one the other night, and this isn't me saying anything negative to anybody, because at the end of the day, if people can get out of addiction, great. Whatever way they want to get
Yeah,
out of it is brilliant.
absolutely.
Um, but I went into a live with a lot of people who were in the fellowship, and I've made a lot of really, really good friends with people who were in fellowships.
Which
And
type of fellowship?
the NAs and the
Okay,
CAs and things like
yeah,
that, all different ones.
okay.
Um, and I came at it from a different perspective. I started speaking about the brain and how the addiction is a form of psychological and emotional. It's addiction is created by emotional and psychological suffering. It's human suffering, right? And
Hmm.
I came about it from a different perspective, as whereas about the dopamine levels in the brain and how we're affected by trauma, and how our emotional state is sort of solidified in traumatic experiences and things like this. And again, this isn't throwing dirt on nobody, but nobody knew a lot of the things that I was saying. And I'm just a normal guy. I'm just a guy
Me
who's
too.
read things and listened to things on the internet, right? And one thing I'm really, really shocked by is when people. I was there myself at one point, where we say we don't know how to get out of these situations. The internet is a fantastic place if you use it properly, and that's what a lot of people don't seem to do, is educate themselves. We try and look for somebody else to fix us rather than fix ourselves initially, and
Right. Well, I
that was
think a
that.
lot of people, you know, my whole thing in this whole process is it's never about the addiction.
Yeah,
It's always about the pain underneath it. You know,
100%.
get rid of the pain, get rid of the addiction. So
Mm,
with rehab and AA and NA, um, they try to keep you sick because they want to keep you coming back. There's no solution. There's no empowering at all.
yeah,
There's no, I didn't walk into an AA meeting and go, wow,
yeah,
I want to be a part of this. I
yeah,
walked out after sitting in a metal chair in the basement of a church in a circle, having to say that I'm an alcoholic, that I am powerless,
mm,
and everybody's just repeating the same thing. And I'm like, where's the inspiration?
mm,
Where are the people? And I looked for months after I got out of rehab before I relapsed. Where's the group of successful people? Where are the people
mm,
that are 1 year sober, 3 years sober, 5, 10 years sober, 20 years sober? Where are those people that are crushing it in life? I want to be in that
mm,
group.
mm,
And I couldn't find any group. So
yeah,
I created my own group, Success After Sobriety, and I'm just getting started because I want to help people be empowered with no judgment, no
yeah,
labels. Let's go, let's rebuild. And that's
yeah,
what it's all about.
yeah. I agree. I mean, so one of my first questions, and again, you don't have to go into detail of circumstances and things like that, is when we first start drinking, when we first start using, or whatever the addiction is. We're not necessarily addicted instantly.
No,
You know, there's
no.
a process to it, isn't there? There's an
Yeah,
environment and all.
it's a slow process that all of a
Yeah,
sudden
yeah,
that light switches and you're done.
yeah. So I guess my first question is, what do you believe that your process was to fall into that addiction? How, a lot of it's environment and friends and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
So what
So
what was yours?
so for me, I what's funny about it is that I was married to an alcoholic, and so I knew what it was like to be on the other side, right? And I never had a drinking problem ever. I'm a very social drinker. Then I found myself getting into another relationship that I got pregnant at 40, like after 8 weeks of dating. So that was a major, pivot point,
Yeah.
for me. And so, but I had to uproot my whole life to blend our families. So, for that reason, it was, difficult. And I had to sell my house and sell this and,
Mm,
you know, leave my identity and join somebody else's. So,
mm,
again, I'm not going to go into detail about
yeah.
that, but I was, unhappy, and so the daily drinking, started,
Mm,
and I, you know, that as more years accumulated, your body needs more, right? So the biggest pivot point for me was that I was cleaning house one day. It was a normal Saturday morning, making coffee and making breakfast. My son was 10 at the time, and I felt some numbness in my leg, and then it was in both legs. And then my arms started to tingle, and within minutes, I was paralyzed from the neck down.
wow.
So that was my first sign, right? And rushed to the ER. My son had to call 911. He's 10 years old. And my whole family rushes there. They have no idea about my drinking.
Mhm.
And the ER looks at my parents. They look at me. And he asked me, "How many drinks are you having a day?" And I had to admit in front of my family. And I said, you know, 10 or more. And he asked me, "What are you drinking?" Like it mattered, really, right? I mean, 10
Yeah,
drinks for somebody that's 5'1" and 110 pounds is a lot, right? 10
yeah,
drinks for
yeah,
anybody is a lot. And
yeah, yeah,
so I said, "I drink vodka and Monster, which is an energy drink."
yeah.
And he said, "Because you've been drinking that and abusing alcohol for years, what it has done to you is depleted your entire body of all potassium and all magnesium. And had you not came in here when you did, your heart would have stopped."
Wow.
So, yeah. So that was a shocker. My secret was out, right? And then that just turned into more of a downhill spiral. Of course, I'm like, that's a huge scare. I got this. I'll quit. And I did. I quit for 62 days. And then I went on a trip to Vegas and had a couple drinks. The next couple
Mm.
days turned into all day drinking. Vegas is not a good place to go when you're just coming out of addiction.
Yeah, I've been to Vegas. I've been to
Have you?
Vegas.
I was just going to say, because you're in the UK, right, Lee?
Yeah, I live in Wales, so I live in the north of
Oh,
Wales.
okay. All right.
But yeah, Vegas is
So
a
Vegas,
crazy place.
fun, but not so. I'm still in my same, environment, wondering how I got get myself back. I had given up my career, and that's a whole, another, story that, again, I don't want to get into because I'm still in the middle
Yeah.
of some,
Okay.
corporate. It's not important. What's important is for people to understand
Yeah.
the gradualness of it, and even when you have a health scare, that you still don't go, I'm done. Like, what's going on here? You never look at the problem. You're always looking at the addiction. And that's the other thing that's really interesting about all of this is that family dynamic, right? When you're somebody like me that isolated, they were shocked. They had no idea. So, of course, after 62 days, when um, I relapsed, they didn't know that I had been drinking again because I went to full blown isolation mode. And then COVID hit. And we all know if you're already, an alcoholic or, abusing alcohol, because there's a big difference. And that's another thing that really makes me angry is that everybody put in a box, right? You're an alcoholic. And that's not true. An alcohol abuser, which is what I was for quite some time, is somebody that just drinks too much and it's negatively affecting their life. But their body doesn't have a physical need for it. You're not waking up in the morning needing a glass of vodka, which is exactly where I was after the ER visit and going deeper into that addiction. That I would, have a glass of vodka in the morning. So when COVID hit, that was game on, right? It was brutal for me and a lot of, different, people. And so my sister, she had called one day, spring of 2020. So about a month or two after, COVID hit and we're in lockdown. And she called me crying and begging me. She's like, I think that you're going to die. I'm so scared. And, she said, will you go to rehab? And so at that point is when I actually, decided to go. And she made all the arrangements for me to go. And, I went and, really just the first time that I got sober, those 62 days, I went cold turkey. So to me, that screams not addicted to alcohol, just really abusing and negatively affecting my life. But this time, I was definitely addicted. I was getting ready in the morning. My hands were shaking. I was sick to my stomach. I could barely apply mascara. Um, you know, I was sick, trying to vomit. I don't know how graphic you want me to get, but, you know, I was.
I don't mind.
It's just reality of the brutality of what it can do to you. But, when you're an alcoholic, you have no need for food anymore. You're just not hungry. You'd rather drink than eat, which is true for a lot of people. And that's exactly what I did. I had gotten dangerously thin. And so I didn't have, I was just dry heaving and just, it was, praying to the porcelain god, to make it stop. So when I got there, they put me in detox. And I only needed a day. And then went right into the circle meetings. I'm an alcoholic. And I'm like, don't want to be called that, but if this is how it works, because that's the other thing, right? You don't know. Nobody in my family went to rehab. I didn't know what rehab was like, but your family doesn't know what to do with you. They think, we put her in rehab, and then she goes to intensive outpatient, and then she's going to meetings for 90 days, and all this stuff that has a 95% failure rate, but they don't know.
So I've got a few questions to unpack from what you've just said there. The first one is so the word you've got to hit rock bottom before you do something about it. I disagree with this word because, like you've just said there, you almost died from your addiction to alcohol. I was very, very similar. So it was during COVID, mine, where I took enough narcotics to kill a small elephant and a load of sleeping tablets, and tried to end it. Right. So I'd lost. A long story short, because I've mentioned it 100 times, is that I was raised by my grandparents pretty much. My parents were very volatile and toxic. A number of reasons. I got divorced I separated from the children's mother just before COVID. I'm probably had the worst 2 or 3 years of my life in COVID. I went full Britney Spears mode, shaved my head, drinking every day, everything, and using. I was using a lot and
Redemption
isolated.
story.
Sorry?
I said great redemption story. I love it.
Yeah, yeah. I was using every day. I was isolating, so I was alone most days. It was like a prison. I was like a prisoner in my own home at one point. And I sold my house and I had to go and live with my father, who I hadn't never lived with in my whole life. So it was very, very difficult. And I tried to take my own life. And where they say, you've got to hit rock bottom before anything gets better, I disagree, because I hit rock bottom. And when I got better, physically better, I carried on. I carried on using, carried on drinking. And it was only until my girlfriend, who I'm with now, of 2 years, she said to me, look, if this carries on, I'm going to leave. And, history was repeating itself again. And I was about to lose everything for the second time,
Mm-hmm.
And it was only then when I realized that my girlfriend is my angel and I love her and I want to do better for her and I want to do better for my own children, is that when I realized, look, you need to do some serious work on yourself and become a better person. For me, first of all, for me, and then, better for my children and my girlfriend. And that was when, last year, that I realized, look, you've got to change. You need to rewire this brain somehow, and you've got to change. And touch wood, I'm changing. I'm doing it for the better, and I'm loving it. I'm loving this period of my life where, this is my 29th episode of the podcast.
Congratulations.
I'm organizing. Thank you. I'm organizing events, local events, where I can go and speak with some guest speakers, and I want to build my character, my personal. I want to build me.
Yep.
I want to
Yep.
build
There's
me into
more
this
people needed
space.
like you. You have no idea, Lee, what you're doing. A year from now, you're going to look at yourself and go, wow, what a redemption, what a story, right?
Yeah.
Because that's the big issue, is that when you're looking at rock bottom, that doesn't exist, first of all,
Yeah.
right?
I agree.
Different
I
for
agree.
everybody. The other thing that you touched on, which is crucial for people to know, because there's all these phrases out there and all of this one way. You have to do it for yourself. If you don't do it for yourself, it's never going to happen. And that is the
I agree.
stupidest thing that they've ever said. Because here you are, an addict, here you are, an alcoholic. You don't care about anybody,
No.
clearly, because you're not in your right frame of mind. But you have all these people that love and care about you and are rooting for you, right? And then one day you finally wake up because, like you had a girlfriend in your life. You had something that you wanted more than the drugs, right? For
Yeah.
me, it was my sister that and I didn't necessarily do it for her, but I was so trapped in my environment. It wasn't like I was in a condition to raise my hand and say, please take me to rehab. Nobody says that.
Yeah.
So there's all these different things that have society has implemented in, almost kind of brainwashing us with these
Yeah.
um, phrases and the way it is, and the narrative's changing. You know, TikTok is huge for. I mean, I follow some really great people on there, and there's this one guy. He has like 600,000 followers, and I love him. His um, his message is very similar to yours and I, and he was so kind to reach out to me. He actually joined one of my lives, and I've only been doing lives for a week. So
Mm.
and it's great. But he jumped on one of my lives to kind of protect me a little bit because my subject was why AA doesn't work. And I was getting pretty beat up. And I don't know, it was kind of foolish of me because it almost made me stop doing lives. I had so much backlash.
Yeah.
And so he kind of came in there and saved me by the grace of God. And just throwing out statistics, on how it doesn't work and blah blah blah. And but he sent me a private message, and he goes, "Don't let them scare you. Don't keep." He goes, "You are onto something, and you have no idea. Your message needs to be heard." So
Mm.
you and I, Lee, are very similar and just kind of getting started. So I don't know how you found me, which is ironic.
Mm.
Do you remember?
Do I remember? Um, yeah, I, no, if I'm being honest, I can't remember how I found you. I know I obviously I came across you and I messaged you, asking if you. I think was I on one of your lives? Did I come on one of your lives?
No, no, we've actually been chatting. I think it was like a month ago that you had reached out to
That's
me, and
right.
then we're just
That's
kind
right.
of
Yeah.
going back and forth. And I've only been on TikTok a few months, so I was just like,
Same.
you know,
Same.
yeah, is this guy real? And then I looked you up, and I'm like, well, he looks real, but he's in UK. Why would he be interested in me? And then he's running a male, a male podcast primarily, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure I don't look like a man. So but it's all good.
it, it's not necessarily initially I was going to do it aimed at men's mental health, because that's where I was. That was the phase of my life that I was in. Right, I was struggling with my mental health,
Yeah.
and I'm a man, so I thought, well, what can I do here? So it was, well, I'm a man and I've got mental health, struggling with my mental health. Well, it's what's relevant at the time, right? But over the couple of months, my philosophy and my ideology is growing, and
Mm-hmm.
by doing so, it's women struggle with addiction the same as I have. Women
Absolutely.
struggle with mental health the same as I do. So, why not open this up for everybody? And to be honest, I think it's brilliant that I'm going to speak to more women, because that'll also help me grow. That'll also learn me things that I don't know,
Yeah,
from
absolutely.
a woman's perspective, right? Or from your, not necessarily even a woman's perspective. It's just growth. That's it. In a
Yeah.
nutshell, it's growth. The growth mindset that I've got. I just want to speak to as many people as I can and educate myself. That's what I want to do, and in turn, I can help educate other people. Um, and I guess the next question I've got, and I've got a sneaky suspicion you know what this is, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Um, have you read the book Rational Recovery?
I have not.
Okay. Have you heard of AVRT?
I have not.
Okay. So there's a book. It was written in the 90s called Rational Recovery, and
Okay.
it uses something called AVRT, which is addictive voice recognition techniques. Um,
Okay.
I said if you write it down and have a little
Yeah,
look at it,
what
I
is
think
the name of the book again?
it'd be brilliant for what you're doing, the journey that you're on and the help that you're trying to provide or provided.
Yeah.
Um, so basically, what it does,
Yeah.
it
Wait,
was
give me the name of the
create
book again.
it was rational recovery.
And it does what? What was the acronym?
AVRT, addictive voice recognition techniques.
Interesting. I have no idea what that is.
So basically, I've just finished the book now. I listen to it on audio, because I learn better by listening, not by reading. Always been that way, and I'm studying neuro linguistics as well at the moment, which is how our brain interprets our
Yeah,
reality through sense, smell, feel, touch, etc.
like
Um,
NLP.
NLP,
Yeah, okay.
neuro
Yeah, I
linguistics,
know that well.
Sorry.
I know NLP well.
Yeah, so that I've been studying that only for a couple of months. So again, I'm a beginner to all this, but so Addicted, the Rational Recovery was a book written by an American guy in the early 90s, and he challenged the AA community, the CA community, etc. And similar to what you just said there, he got a lot of backlash, but he also created this um, massive community within America. And basically what it was separating your addiction and giving your addiction a name. So the gentleman, he liked to call his the beast.
Yeah.
So his addiction was called the beast, and so then you would rationally identify when your addiction was speaking to you. So for me, it was, our addictions can be sneaky, right? It can be sneaky, deceiving, manipulative, but it can also be happy, loving, caring, whatever you want it to be. And so it was just about recognizing when it is your addiction speaking to you rather than you and,
I love that.
your
Yeah, that's
real self talking.
brilliant.
It was really, really good. Do you know
So
what? I
what
haven't even looked at one
did
of my
you
questions
think
that I've
that I
written
knew?
down yet, and I don't
Yes.
think I need to yet. I don't
Yeah.
think I
Did you
need
think
to.
that I knew what that was?
I thought so because of the work that you're doing. It sounds very, very similar to the book that that I'm listening to. So I thought you might have known what that was.
No, but I appreciate that. It's probably because of my coaching and speaking
Yeah,
background. You know, before this all happened to me, I was speaking on stage with people like Brian Tracy and Les
I seen
Brown, and so
Dr. Phil. I seen a photo with Dr. Phil.
oh yeah, yeah. So
That's cool.
yeah, it's so funny. That's like a big thing, right? It's a big deal, and I often tend to forget about it, and that's kind of a funny story if you want me to share.
Sure.
Yeah. So I social media had just came out, and I was just really kind of in, the market was changing, and I was a real estate coach at the time because that's my background. I've been
Okay.
selling real estate since I was 19. And so I was working for a large firm, and social media was just kind of blowing up. So I ended up getting on Twitter and created 4,000 followers in 90 days, all organically, and that was just huge at the time. Right now it doesn't
Mhm.
mean anything. And one of my coaching clients called and said, "Hey, Dr. Phil's looking for social media experts," which is hysterical. And I put in the application. Literally, I put in the application. 2 hours later, they called me, and the next day I was on set. It like happened that
Wow.
fast. So I had all kinds of momentum until my world came crashing down on me. But I think when you're looking at who you were before you started using, because some people, maybe they've been a lifetime user, right? They grew up with that. um, I struggle too with the whole, well, it runs in my family type of thing. Obviously I'm not a doctor or scientist or anything like that, but to me, just kind of looking at it from the outside, I don't think you have that in your blood necessarily. And I'm probably of a lot of backlash. I don't know. But for me, I think it's just learned behavior. You know, you grow up in an alcoholic family. That's how you deal with your problems, and you just repeat the cycle. I don't know.
So, do you know much about um, you know, Jordan Peterson is, right?
Yes,
Do you know who Dr. Gabor Mate? Have you heard of him?
yeah, that was the quote that I gave you early. You know, get
All right.
you know he that I love that because it's brilliant. It says everything about addiction in one phase. It's don't ask why the addiction, ask why the pain.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I was listening to something. I was listening to him talk on transgenerational trauma the other night, um, and he was talking about that they're actively looking into um, the sort of science behind our parents carrying trauma genetically or in their DNA and transferring it to us that way. Um, there's not a lot of accurate data on it at the moment, but there is some sort of possibility that that is something that is happening. Um, so that's so. I guess what I'm trying to say is that they're unsure. I guess whether that is a possibility or not. But if if you get time and if you want to look into it, it's called transgenerational trauma.
Yeah,
Um, and I think there is a lot of work being done on it at the moment to see whether that is
for sure.
a
Yeah.
yes or a no. I guess.
I think Lee
But
too. It's as we I feel that I'm leading this movement, right? With my community and changing the narrative, but it's also our responsibility to try to educate ourselves as much as we
100%.
can, so we're not, pigeonholing. Is that a word?
Yeah.
Pigeonhole in ourselves. Yeah. So you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, and
So
and that's it. I don't want to be this type of person who has tunnel vision. I'm not educated enough on anything in the world to be, to have tunnel vision, right? So one thing I do know, the things that I say, I try to make sure that they're correct. I don't always do that. Like I say, I'm a novice, but there's a lot of things that I'm learning at the moment. Education for me at the moment is
yeah,
priority, and I really mean it. It's
yeah,
priority
it
because
will
if
propel you to, you know, not only make yourself better, but the more you learn and the more you're growing and the more you are focused on what you're passionate about and sharing, the farther you move away from addiction,
yeah,
right? Because that's another piece of the pie, right? You get rid of the pain, right? And everybody's different. Some people got a lot of trauma. Other people, okay, exit out of that toxic relationship like me. But what really to avoid relapse and slipping back, you have to replace that with something that you love, whether it's your girlfriend or your family member, but something for you, like this podcast for you. And as you're learning and growing, it's great because you're not the expert here. You're bringing people on that say, hey, you're just like me, or what is your opinion on that? And it's not a
mm-hmm.
debate. That's what
Yeah,
drives me crazy with
yeah, I
the
hate it.
AA community. Everything's a freaking debate, and we're
Yeah,
not debating, but it's open for discussion.
yeah,
And I've had some really great people on TikTok, that are 20 years sober and huge
mm,
fans of AA. And
yeah.
I said, help me understand you guys identifying as an alcoholic because I don't get it. I really
I
don't.
need to know.
And I'm not going to do it ever. But she said, for me, that just constantly reminds me of who I don't want to be. And then that made sense. I'm like, okay, that works for her, but, in the overall scope of things, I think for the majority of the people, they don't want to have to identify as an alcoholic. And then why do we have to identify as anything? You're much more than whatever that was that you had going on, right? You're a mom, you're a dad, you're a sister, you're a friend, you're a good person in the community. We're all these other things, but with the brainwashing that we've had, the last 30 years on this is how it works, it makes people feel uncomfortable to even reach out because their self-confidence is so low anyways, and then you enter an arena that says, here's your box, here's what you need to do, here's the 12 steps, you got to get through them. And when I saw that, I'm like, that's all you got, that's it. And again, not distant. I understand it works for some people, but it's dated, and the
I agree.
narrative's changing, and they're pissed because they're like, well, it can't be this way, and you can't open it up for this conversation. And yeah, we can, and we are.
Yeah, I agree. I think just unpacking a little bit of what you said there, the initial part that you said about how we grow out of this addictive stage, and it drives us further away from the addiction. I I'm going to say it's my quote. I made this quote. It's turning pain into purpose is
Yeah,
how I sort of look at it now. This pain.
I
So
love
I got
that.
asked a question. I got asked a question a couple of days ago. How I deal with my grief and how I deal with my sadness of being in addiction. And my answer was, it holds no purpose in my life whatsoever anymore.
I love that.
I have no grief. I
Yeah,
have no sadness. The
yeah,
pain that I experienced, the guilt, it's all gone. All of it. I don't need it in my life to sit there and linger on something that happened 20 years ago or 25 years ago serves me no purpose in what I'm doing. The drive that I have is I will never be that person again.
yeah.
So my drive is to continuously grow, to separate myself from that title, and that brings me into what you mentioned in there. I had this conversation with a guy from Manchester a couple of weeks ago on a podcast, and the problem is with today's society, and I'm probably guilty of it myself at some times, is we give power to titles and acronyms to describe ourselves. And like you've just said there, we are parents, we are brothers or sisters, or what we are is human beings. We are not, and I want to swear, we are
No,
not titles.
you know what? I almost asked you that. I said, I almost sent you a message earlier saying, can we swear on your podcast? But we
Yes,
can't with
yes.
YouTube, can we?
No, we can swear. We can swear.
Ah,
Yes. Yeah.
okay, good, because I'm a Gen Xer. We don't
Yeah.
hold back. So
Yeah.
it's all good.
Well, and yeah, and that it pisses me off that we give titles to, let's say, I'm an addict. Okay, that's what I was. I'm not now. I'm some.
Exactly.
I'm more. I had my friend said, "Oh, I've got ADHD." Well, that's fine, but you are not ADHD. You are not these titles and medical terms that people give us. You know, it just seems to be sort of this flavor at the moment where we have to identify as something, whatever that is. It doesn't matter what we identify as. We are all fucking human beings,
Yep,
and
absolutely.
that is our identification. We are humans.
Yeah.
That's it.
And that's
That's all.
where
That's it.
the narrative, needs to change, and so many things else. And I just had this pop up in my head. Another thing that drives me absolutely insane, it's like the worst thing ever, is the counting your days, and then when you relapse you have to start at zero. Who invented that? Like, give me a break. first of all, let's just take if you're on a weight loss journey, right? And you lose 20 pounds, but then you go on a cruise and you gain 5 of it back. Do those 15 pounds still count? Yep, they sure do. So, me being 18 months sober and then hitting that relapse, just add your days. I earned that 18 months.
Definitely.
So,
Definitely.
when you tell somebody, go back to zero, it's like, what are we in kindergarten? You got to go back to the end of the line.
And this is it. Like, I don't understand by going back to zero doesn't serve any purpose in anybody's life. It's just if you relapse on day 35, the day after is day 36.
Yeah.
For me, like Tony Robbins. Did you watch much of Tony Robbins? I'd imagine you would, being a speaker
Yeah, of
as
course.
such.
Yeah, been to several of his events and met him personally, so very fortunate.
You've met Tony Robbins?
I have. Yeah, he
Wow.
spoke at one of our events, and it was pretty amazing. So yeah, I was fortunate.
Wow.
I've met a lot of big players. Yeah, hold on. I just
Nice.
wanted to write a thought down before I get off subject.
Well, Tony Robbins, I'd say Tony Robbins, Jordan Peterson, and probably Joe Rogan have been three inspirations for me over the last
Yeah,
couple of years.
well,
As
that could be your
to
goal, Lee, to get on Joe Rogan.
you know what, I've got a few goals that they're pipe dreams at the moment, but
Yeah,
a year ago I would never have thought I'd be doing something like this, sat
yeah.
here speaking to somebody like yourself. So in a year's time, who knows where I'll be, but I've got plans and I've got goals and I've got aspirations. Um, and we'll see. The fun, like I keep saying, the
You
fun is
never
in
know.
the journey, not the end, the finish
Yeah,
line, right?
yeah.
The
It's
fun is in the journey.
your
So we'll see.
destination has begun. I wanted to
Yeah.
go back to the counting the days real quick, though, because something that also struck me, and it's so funny because I have all these things that I'm so passionate about and how wrong the system is. I'm like, God, there has to be people that feel like me because counting the days just seems so ridiculous to me. Like, what are you counting? You're counting the days that you didn't poison yourself? Is that what we're celebrating? I'm a year sober. I'm a year that I didn't celebrate poisoning myself. And I don't want to be disrespectful because I know for a lot of people that the counting the days can be powerful for them. And I think it's good at the beginning. But in hindsight, I think after time, it again plays with your subconscious stating, I'm sober, I'm 44 days. It almost kind of loops you back into remembering that person. And maybe that's good for some people. I don't know. I don't I don't want to celebrate that sober date. I want to celebrate the day that I got my life back. Like for me, it doesn't resonate to celebrate something that was a bad period of my life. And I know that's probably something that people are gonna hate, but it's almost like, I've been 2 years not being arrested, you know, or I don't know. I'm sure that people are gonna hate that, but it just doesn't resonate with me.
Yeah, and that's where I was going to say about Tony Robbins. He done a podcast with Theo Von, the comedian,
I
and Theo
love him.
Von's love him. So mine and
So
Theo's
funny.
backstory is mine and Theo's backstory is almost identical. It's crazy how much we
Really?
are the same. Honestly, it's so crazy. Like the way he talks about his mum. Honestly, and I've sat there and watched almost every episode he's done,
Well,
and I'm
maybe
like,
you think you
wow.
need to. that on your goal sheet to be on Theo's podcast.
I'd
Yeah.
I'd
He,
much I'd much prefer to be on Theo's than I would anybody else's. I'd
yeah,
love to sit and talk to him because I think that I'm quite a funny guy as well, but I wouldn't be nowhere near as funny
he
as he
cracks
was.
me up. That
But
interview. Go ahead.
But Tony Robbins, he says to him, the only reason we count is to give ourselves an excuse when we fail. He says, so if we count 65 days and then we fail, and then we count 68 days the next time and fail, we could say, well, at least I done 3 days better than last time. And that's what he says. He says, we count to give ourselves an excuse when we fail. Me personally, I don't know whether that's true. I'm just quoting what he said. But I
I like
am actually going to be doing some episodes in the near future with people who've been involved in the AA and the CA or the NA, because I want to get an insight as to how it works. Right? Again, it's not something that I'm afraid of or against. It's just not my belief. It's not something that benefited me. So I'm definitely going to be, speaking to a few people to see what their sort of belief system is when it comes to the AA and NA.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, counting is something that I disagree with. I don't count. It just, again, it serves me as an individual no purpose at all, having to count back to a time when, I last used drugs or alcohol. I don't see the point.
Yeah. I always use the excuse I'm dyslexic, which I am horribly, and I'm like, oh, counting the dates, that's just way too confusing to me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
Uh, it brings me on to again. I've not had to look at any of my questions. Which
really,
is a good sign. It means that we're having a good conversation.
yeah, no, it's great.
My next question is: when did you realize that you could beat the addiction? When did you realize that you will never ever use again?
I knew the minute I got out of that toxic relationship that was something where I could redeem myself. You know, it doesn't haunt me anymore. I don't have a problem being around people that drink. I never did. You
Yeah,
know, so for me, it was easy because I had made that decision to say to myself, this has been going on for way too long and not working because I was trying to make it work, right? So it the minute I got out, you know, it's not a very exciting story. I wish I had a better story on that, but I would tell
oh,
you
that's
the
fine.
minute I got out, I just felt like this huge piano off my chest. And I had
Yeah,
already, gotten into that second phase of sobriety. So I had some under, my belt, but I knew that I needed to, you know, get back and start rebuilding my life. And I am not even on rebuild mode 2 years.
mm,
But when I talk about rebuild, it's a full rebuild
yeah,
financially, getting,
same.
my house back and my savings account and all of this. And it's really funny how things come, you know, full circle because had you
Mm,
told me 20 years ago when I started my, life and business coaching career that 20 years later I would be in the, recovery and women empowerment. Women empowerment
mm,
maybe would relate, but being in the recovery space, I would have just laughed at you like
yeah,
that's just not me, you know. But
yeah,
it's all good. I mean, it's certainly not easy to come out and maybe put some of your dirty laundry out there. I will tell you that 99% of the people that know me don't know that I had an alcohol problem. They don't know that I went to rehab. I was very high functioning alcoholic.
mm,
People don't know. But guess what? They're going to know now, and that's okay.
If you could give advice to somebody who's coming out of addiction now, what would that be?
Coming out of addiction, meaning they've already stopped?
So yeah, so they've made that conscious decision now to stop, whether that be drink, narcotics, whatever. They've made that conscious decision to stop, and that they just literally made that next step. What would a key piece of advice be? What would you think?
Yeah, so my advice to them, and this is what I did coaching myself, not really having any type of action plan, like I like to call it, on
Hmm.
okay, now what? What's next? So I took myself through three phases, and I think they're really, really important. The first phase is that self discovery phase. And your self discovery phase is basically just kind of reintroducing yourself to that person without the addiction, right? And that's hard for a lot of people because you forgot who you were. You forgot what you like to do. You forgot what
Yeah,
brings you joy and happiness and all of these things. So that's a process of figuring out, who am I? What do I want? And how do I get there? Right? And that comes through lots of different exercises that I go over with my coaching clients and
hmm,
in my community that I've created, that's one of the first things I say is, you know, here's here's the three phases, and for everybody it takes different time. Sometimes it
yeah,
takes a quite a while for you to just kind of, figure out your groove, right? Like,
yeah,
do I still hang out with those friends, or are those people not good? You know, um, trusting with the family. What makes me comfortable? What makes me uncomfortable? What makes me feel
mm,
good? All those things to say, okay, I, and that's all about working on your confidence, right? Because you have no
mhm,
confidence when you come out of that,
mm,
period. Most people don't.
mm,
Then your next phase is the cleanup phase. And that's where most people relapse because your cleanup phase is cleaning up your shit show. Maybe you got DUIs, and now you got to deal with that, right?
mhm.
Maybe you got tax problems because you haven't filed your taxes for 5 years. You got that. You've got family issues because people don't realize when you're off at rehab and having, working on yourself, that family doesn't get to work on themselves because they've been worried about your ass for the last,
Yeah,
you know, year, 5 years, 10, 20, whatever it is, right?
mm,
So they get no fancy rehab vacation time, right? And
yeah,
then you come home and you're like, here's my amends letter or here's my sorry. And they're like, kind of like, screw you. Like,
mm,
I don't think you realize all the crap that you put me through.
yeah,
So that's a big issue
yeah,
because they don't trust you. They, it, the apology's not magic for most. So here, this addict, alcoholic, is coming off this high, right? Of I'm sober now and on that pink cloud, as we call it, right? And now they don't have their family support, or they feel that they don't, right? So now they feel
mm,
betrayed. So there's all these things in your cleanup phase that you got to handle. Rehab doesn't take care of that. AA certainly doesn't. So who's going to help you, right?
yeah,
So in the community that I built, you have people in there. Yeah, I'm on this cleanup phase. Here's the shit show I got. And then you feel like you're part of something and the community feeds off itself. Well, you had DUIs. How long did that take you to get that taken care of? And if you're in the LA area, who'd you use for an attorney? Do I really need an attorney? all these things that help people that have already been through it, that don't have to deal with that. So once you get through that self-discovery phase, once you get through that cleanup phase, then you move on to the success phase. Like, who do I want to become? The world's, your oyster. Maybe you want to land that dream job. Maybe you want to become an entrepreneur like you, Lee, right? Or maybe you're finally in a place and you love dogs. You don't really have to, build get a job or anything, but you can finally foster dogs at the dog shelter, which is a huge need, and you're not too drunk to take care of the dogs. Success doesn't mean that you're making all this money. Success
Yeah.
means that you're thriving in your life by being a better mom, by being a better dad, a better, a better sister. It means all kinds of different things, and everybody's different. But that's why my community success after sobriety is different, because there's no labels, there's no judgment, there's just everybody in there wants to be better, and everybody wants to win. So that was a very long answer to your simple question.
Very good answer. I've been asked a few times, what does success look like to me? And my answer is constantly changing. But I think if I was to generalize it as much as I possibly could, success to me is peace inside my soul, inside my heart, peace. Whatever that looks like at this moment, we always have the stresses of life, right? We always have the stress of paying bills and, family life and this. But that's fine. What I want is peace in my heart, peace in my soul. And that's all I want.
And that's
again,
thing.
I've spoke about, I lived this hedonistic lifestyle for a long, long time, trying to please other people, trying to make myself look like I was this wealthy person on social media, which is a load of shit. But
you got to try it, right?
Yeah. But the way I see it now is I've got a loving partner. My children are fantastic. I've got a fantastic relationship with my children. And we've got this beautiful, loving family that's blossoming between my girlfriend and her two children, and myself and my two children. We've got this lovely little blend that is evolving all the time. And if somebody was to say to me on my deathbed, what did success look like to you in your life? It'd be the people standing around the bed. That's my success.
I love it.
And that's whatever comes from now till then is a bonus.
Yeah, it's a perfect setup to to say that success can be defined in so many things, right? For a lot of people that will be coming in my community, for a lot of success for them is just going to be, you know what? I'm proud of myself, but even more importantly, the people that I hurt are proud of me now. And that's huge validation for that addict, alcoholic, because that will propel them to succeed beyond their wildest dreams.
And that perfectly brings us on to your business and what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I just like you don't have to go into great detail again, but just touch on how it started. Obviously, we know, what the purpose was behind it, but how was it created, I guess, and what does your future look like with what you're doing with your business?
Yeah. So again, I thank you for opening up this platform, for me to even, talk about it. It's just, it hasn't even launched today. I'm, the website's up. So it's Success After Sobriety. We're just still kind of fine tuning it. But how it really evolved was, like I said, when I came out of rehab and I was like, that's it. That's all you got. And me desperately searching for a community of where are the successful people? Where are the inspiring people? Where are the people that are just crushing it and happy and thriving and, just kind of mastermind with each other and networking? And yeah, I'm here, I'm only 30 days in, but here's what I, you know, want to do with my life. Nobody's talking about that. And it's crazy because that was 5 years ago. And it still amazes me that nobody has created a community to thrive in that space. Now, are there ones? Yeah, there, and I've seen them. Some
Yeah.
of them have doctor, and and some of them are great, but there's not a lot, and they're kind of almost niche down. So
Yeah.
I thought, well, let me dive into TikTok and just kind of feel around, right, and see what type of community. And then I found this huge sober community. I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
And then I found a couple people that thought just like me. And I'm like, yes. And so I thought, all right, if I build to 1,000, I don't know. I don't know if you're like this, Lee, but sometimes I play little games with myself. I'm like, okay, God, if you really want me to do this, I will get 1,000 followers in 30 days. Now, of course, I worked it, and sure enough, 29 days, I got 1,000 followers. So I'm like, okay. So then I found a network in a community space to actually start building this network. And it was a lot of work. It's kind of like almost like a Facebook platform. You're able to come in there and see all the members and where they're from. And I come on there live a couple times a week, and we have motivational Monday and Wednesday wins and Friday Q&A before you hit that weekend. If you're new and you're like, I'm not sure. And then there's free courses in there and free tools. But the whole purpose of the community is really to feed off each other, right? To be in a place where everybody wants to be better. Because at the end of
Mm.
the day, I don't care if you love AA, if you hate it, if you had a good experience with rehab, if you didn't, whatever other community, end of the day, all of us want to be better and be in a community with no
Yeah.
judgment, no labels. However you get better that works for you, awesome. So that's
Yeah.
the how it started. And it's taken me a couple months to really dive into that network and figure out all the back ends. I'm 58 years old, so I'm not like one of these, 30-year-olds that can plug into a network with a back end and go, wow, I really got this. So it took me a bit, but I'm super excited about it. I think that, you know, I'll be at 100 members maybe in 90 days. My goal and my mission is one person a day to enter that community. And we don't do one day at a time. We do one story at a time, which I love because that's what I'm building. Real stories,
Yeah.
real people that have, you know, not so much recovered, but rebuild.
That's you've just stole another one of my quotes.
Uh oh.
Um, if you look on the introduction to my podcast when it comes out, it says "real stories from real people."
Oh yeah, I did see that. Maybe
Yeah.
that's why, in subconsciously in my brain, that I said that, and that's really what's
Yeah.
missing. And it's brilliantly laid out, Lee,
Yeah.
because where are the real people, real stories? And there's quite a few podcasts that are doing this now, which is even better for people like you and me because before, even maybe just 5 years ago, podcasts weren't as big. Like everybody wasn't kind of jumping on the bandwagon and having a voice. But now we have all these people that are coming in with real stories. And they're
Yeah.
not one way or the highway. Some are coming in saying, you know what? This is what worked for me. This is the platform. 12 steps was great. AA was great. Other people are like, I just kind of gutted it out and got lucky, and here's where I'm at. Or,
Yeah.
yeah, I got myself surrounded by, some key players that were doing more than I was, and opened up huge opportunities for me. And, I'm crushing it. Love it.
Yeah. And that's it. Where the real stories from real people comes from me is that initially, like you say, 5-6 years ago, there was podcasts about mental health and addiction and things like that, but a lot of it was famous people, um, and I appreciate that the
Yeah,
stories were
they have a
told.
big audience.
But sorry,
Yeah, they have a big audience. That makes sense.
yeah, and but what that's done is it's give people like me and people like yourself the ability and the power to go. Do you know what? I'm ready to tell my story. And that's what's led me to do this, is the fact that I could sit there and listen to the likes of Jordan Peterson or Joe Rogan or Theo Von or Tyson Fury, the boxer, who went
Mm-hmm.
on and opened up about his own mental health issues. Was the ability to go, bloody hell, if these guys can speak about it, or these women or whoever can speak about it, then I can do it as well. And then I slowly found my small community of people that I'm involved with now, and I learned to speak about things, learn how to educate myself, and learn how to have the conversation when it is needed and how it was needed to be done. Um, so yeah, I think it's brilliant. I think the fact that the everyday person like me, I'm just a normal guy from a council estate in North Wales, and I'm able to sit here now and have a conversation with somebody like yourself from across the water. And I think there's nothing negative about that whatsoever. I think it's beautiful and I think it's
Yeah,
powerful.
yeah. Maybe someday we'll both make it, and I'll be speaking on stage in the UK and Wales, and I'll look you up, and we can have a nice dinner together and chat and go, remember
Well,
when we had that first podcast? Because Lee, I don't know if you know, this is my very first podcast I've ever done about success after sobriety.
well, there you go. There you go. You're the first woman who's been on the podcast as well, so it's a first
So
for us both.
all just meant to be.
um, Speaking is something that I do want to get into in the future. Live speaking on a stage and things like that is something that I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
I feel as though, similar to yourself, it's something that needs to be done a lot more of. Um, I have looked down that avenue a little bit in my local area, in one of the local theatres that we've got here. I wouldn't mind doing something. Well, again, it's a pipe dream at the moment, but everything start. Everything's got a starting point.
Well,
So
your
who knows?
lives, Lee, will propel you to get speaking engagements. I think what you'll find, be really consistent on those lives. I don't care if you got, 10 people. What I found, I only been doing it a week, but I'll get, like, for example, yesterday I had 400 views come through, right? And the views don't really matter because those are just people passing, right? But
Mhm.
I had 25 people. I was on there for an hour. 15 of them were consistent almost the entire time on there, which is a lot because people will drop in and drop off, right? But out of those 15 people, 13 followed me. So if you do the math, let's just say you're getting 10 followers a day, that's another 300
Mm.
a month, right?
Yeah.
And those are real followers, organic followers, not you
Mm.
putting out a post and somebody going, "Oh, I kind of like that," but you know, they're not your audience, not your target audience. So it's a brilliant way to build. And
Yeah.
like I said, I'm starting slow, but it's all good. I mean, a year from now, my community will be over 1,000 people, and I'll have well over 100,000 followers on TikTok because I think this thing's going to explode. That's My
That's
big
brilliant.
dream goal.
I don't really do lives. I think I've done 2 since I've been on social media. Um, I've got a slightly different way that I want to address it, but I'm still trying to figure out
Yeah.
the way, the best way that I want
Yeah.
to
How
go
do you
about it.
catch people's attention, Lee, to get people to stay? And this is what I've learned because I'm now an expert. I've been doing it a week. Is that you start with your story.
Yeah.
People are propelled with your story. That
Mm,
keeps engagement, keeps them on the live. So you
mm,
may think you're repeating yourself over and over and over. I tell the same story every day, maybe just slightly different variation. And it's always new people on my life. And then I have a couple, raving fans, but it's yeah, just start telling your story and do it consistently and it'll be awesome.
I'd like to. What I find a lot of on social media is, we talk a lot about the problems, but there's not many conversations that are solution based. Um, what I tend to find is like a lot of people will come in and they'll voice their issues, and that's great. That's the starting point. But I think a lot of people need to start having conversations what are more solution based. I think
Right.
speaking about the problems too much can be detrimental for a lot of people and bring up a lot of trauma. It's good to have those conversations, but a lot of the lives that you see on social media, it's all negative things. I went on a conversation. There was a group of ladies speaking about um, toxic masculinity, which is fine. I enjoy that conversation because it's real, right? And so I said, well, how can we be better? And they said, well, we shouldn't have to tell you. And I said, that's fine. But don't you think it'd be beneficial to speak about possible solutions as well and try and educate a lot of the men? Because there's a lot of men on TikTok who are idiots, right? There's a lot of stupid, crazy people on TikTok. But I believe if we're going to talk about problems, we need to talk about solutions as well, whatever they may be.
Yeah.
Everybody's solution may be different, but that's
Yeah.
my opinion on it, I guess.
Yeah. And Lee, you know, don't be afraid to voice your opinion and
Mm.
get whatever backlash because the whole point of going live is to find your people and your people will
Yeah,
find you. The reason why
yeah,
I shared um, you know telling you to share your story at the beginning, and this is part of the speaking background that I have, is that in order for somebody to pay attention to you, in order for somebody to listen to you, it's called ETR, earn the right. And by earning the right is through your story. Why do I want to listen to you? Otherwise, you're not going to get the retention
okay,
on the live, or when you speak in front of somebody, you've already lost them because they're like, who is this guy? And the more you tell your story, which is the easiest thing, because when you're speaking, it can be nerve wracking. You have to nail that
okay.
first 5 minutes or you're dead to the water, right? If you've got a
Mm.
20-minute, 30-minute speech and you don't nail, but by earning the right, it's your story, and that's always easy to tell.
That makes sense. That makes
Yeah,
sense. I've got one more question before I
yeah, how are we
let you
doing?
go.
Yeah, thank you.
Uh, we've got just 1 hour and 20, so that's good. That's a good time. I've got one more question, and it is: if you could have 4 people sit round a dinner table with you from the past, alive or not, who would they be?
I love this so much. It's so perfect to end. Gosh. Well, I think my grandma, for sure, who's not alive, which is my mom's mom. Um, so what was the question? 4 people that what? Say it again.
4 people from history, dead or alive, basically.
Just to sit around a table with me?
Sit round a dinner table.
Yeah. Huh. I'd love to, mastermind with Tony Robbins for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and my grandma would think that that would be a hoot. Gosh, other people that inspire me. It's taking me a long time. Um, Probably Brian Tracy, if you even know who he is. He's in his 80s now, but
No.
he's a huge, huge inspirational speaker for the last 30,
Okay.
40 years. And he's such a wealth of knowledge and such a gentleman. I remember I was nervous about being on stage and, just kind of really having a hard time. And I had to go after him, which was horrible, because he's like the superstar and here is just little me. And he came up to me and he says, it was so cute. He says, Tammy, you did phenomenal. You did such a great job. And instead of me, you know, saying thank you, I went, oh, I think I did. And he just put both of his hands on my shoulder and he goes, just say thank you and
Yeah.
relax and
Mm.
reel it in. Fourth person, gosh, I'm trying to figure out who. There's so many people that inspire me. I guess if I was gonna have like those two key people, um, I and there's more than four. I would want my parents and my sister to witness that mastermind. I just want to do better, so I want to put myself in a room of people that. Oh, I know the last person, Brendan Burchard. Do you know who that is? Okay.
No.
Yeah, you'll have to look him up. He is
Okay.
fabulous too. He is, they're all in the personal development space.
Okay.
But Brendan Burchard has a great thing too. So, yeah, I'm glad that you asked that question because it's such a great way to kind of end.
Yeah.
It caught me off guard, which I don't think you've caught me off guard this whole hour and a half. So good job, Lee. Going,
Yeah,
gotcha.
that's why I ask it, because it's
Yeah,
sort of that breaker. It sort of
yeah, really
breaks down the
think
conversation
about it because I'm like, my brain's like, only four, you know? So, yeah, too funny. So,
that's it. Job done.
yeah, well, it was an absolute pleasure, Lee. You made this
It was.
super, super easy for me, and super
Thank you.
relaxing. So, I've got my first podcast checked off.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Job done. There you go. We'll definitely do something again in the future.
yeah,
Like I say to everybody, just because it's one episode, life goes on, stories evolve,
yeah.
the brain,
Yeah, well, we'll
we
we'll be
evolve.
in
So
touch for sure. I've got you'll see it, growing crazy. I hope. I think it will. I think there's a definite need for it. So
I hope so. I hope so. And maybe we could do something in the future with somebody out of your community, and somebody that you've helped can come on here as well and
yeah,
speak about their
absolutely.
journey and how you've helped them. That would be
Yeah,
pretty
and I
cool.
already have some really great connections on
Okay.
TikTok, so I am happy to throw them your way, Lee, as a
Yeah.
thank
Yeah.
you, and
Yeah,
then
of course.
we'll just go from there. So, all
Cool.
right. Well, thank you, sir.
Right.
Appreciate you so much.
Yeah. Yeah. And thank you very much for being the first lady to come on here and speak to me.
I'll
So
take
thank you very
that.
much.
First lady. All right.
Yeah. Right.
All right.
Thank you very much. See you
All right.
soon.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.